Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Borg, and welcome to our Leadership Podcast. Today, we have a special guest by the name of Mr. Mel Kleiman. Mel specialty is helping organizations build their frontline workforce, which will build their bottom line. Welcome to the program, Mel.
Tom, glad to be here and glad to share some ideas with your podcast listeners. Hope we can have an interesting conversation because I think, as you and I talked about earlier, the number one challenge that every business is facing today is finding, retaining great workforce. And as my tagline tells, helping companies build a front line that builds their bottom line. And I've been doing this for, almost 40 years. And I have to tell you that right now, I have never seen a situation like we have today. We're in this war for workers. It is absolutely unbelievable. And I think all of you recognize, no matter what your industry, you just can't find drivers. You can't find truck drivers. You can't find restaurant helpers. You can't find retail clerks. You can't find manufacturing people. You can't find customer service people. For some reason, the market for labor has literally dried up, and we are in a war. And the ones who win the war are going to be the ones who find and are able to attract and retain great employees.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mel, I know one of the problems many businesses are facing is this business of unemployment that seems so lucrative for people not even to bother to apply for a position or a job. How do we even address that issue?
Well, Tom, you begin to look at it, and the reason I call it a war, and it's not a battle, because wars are fought on many fronts.
Mm-hmm.
And the war for workers literally, as I identified, is going to be fought on four fronts. The first front that we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to be able to attract them. We are no longer in an acquisition hiring mode. We are in an attraction mode. You can't go out and acquire people. You're going to have to attract them into your organization. So we have to look at what are some of the steps we have to do for attraction. And I'll come back and visit that once we did the second phase. The second battle we're fighting is one of selection. And this has always been a very difficult challenge. And it's a very costly problem of selecting the best that come in the door. And in this particular case, this has also changed because selection used to be, when it was acquisition mode, selection was us picking you. You walk in the door and we decide whether we want you to come to work for us. Today, the world has changed. There are two sides of the world today, and there are two decisions questions that have to be answered. On my side, as an employer, I have to ask the question, are you right for my job? As you, as the potential employee, has to ask the question, is that job right for me?
Mm-hmm.
And if we begin to look at that as an employer and an employee, and look at both of us aiming for the same objective, the right job for the right person at the right time, then we look at building a better acquisition process or a better selection and screening process to make sure we're not only good for that applicant, but that applicant is good for us, no matter which way we look at it. So we've got that acquisition, that screening mold in there. Okay. Thirdly, once we have that, we have what most of us look at, and I can put a price tag on each one of these if you want to. But if you look at then, once you've hired them and you've got them, the problem is today is retention.
Mm-hmm.
If you've done a great job of hiring and you've done a great job of training, the fact of the matter is, who is the easiest person to leave you? And that's your best employee. Who does your competition want to do? They want to hire every single one of the best people you've got out there. We're always looking for the best people. So it is a retention model. Otherwise, what you have is you have holes in your bucket. You've hired great people. And right now, Indeed just did a survey that talked about the fact that better 65% of all the people out there who are now employed are interested in looking at a new job as this pandemic has gone away. And it has gone away so quickly. We've been so successful at adapting the new vaccine that it is booming and we can't get people. Well, the fact of the matter is, it's a retention problem as much as anything else. And then finally, no matter how good you are at recruiting, how good you are at selection, how good are your retention, the fourth and final battle place is how good are you engaging? How good are you at developing that word that I find so difficult to most understand is culture? How good are you at developing that culture that will engage your employees, that they feel part of your organization? And engagement boils down, and again, as I talked about, 65% of the people are looking at new work potential.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Gallup polls, who does the engagement survey, says better than 65% of employees are engaged or totally unengaged. That means only 35% of your workforce is giving you total commitment to that work. And what is engagement? Engagement involves around a very simple statement. Engagement is you helping get us as a company get what we want, but we as a company helping you get what you want. That's what engagement is all about. So when we look at it, I love the line, and I could talk about the number one key to tackling the workforce, and I'll come back to that. The problem today, the number one tool you need, I'll talk about in a minute, because most of you don't have it in your arsenal. But I love a term by Branson at Virgin Air, and what he says to potential employees, what he says to his present employees. We are going to train you and develop you well enough that you can leave. But we're going to treat you so well, you'll want to stay.
Nice.
If you can put that on your value, if you can put that on your value statement, then you've really captured what it's going to take. So those are the four battlefronts. So you can win one battle and still lose the war. And the war is won at the end by building and retaining. And those people who win the war are going to be the winners. Think about the companies that you recognize, the number one employers in the country. They have figured out how to do this. Best place to work. They figured out how to do this. And they're not, Amazon's on that list. They can pay lots of money. You know what? Take Apple. Apple's net profit per employee. This is a number that you should all be figuring and looking at. Apple's net profit per employee is over $600,000. How much can you afford acquiring and training and developing, and when you make $600,000 per employee? In the retail world, the grocery world, the hospitality world, the hotel world, the major employers of hourly employees, the average net profit per employee is $4,700.
That's $4,700 per year.
Per year, per employee.
Wow.
Now, if you've got a $4,700 net profit, and it's a number you should all look at, take your net profit at the end of the year and divide it by the number of employees. Okay. And everybody is raising wages, right? You're waging rate. Okay. Walmart. Let's take Walmart. Their net profit is less than $4,700. Now that's last year's figures. Maybe with the pandemic, I'll give them a benefit. I'll say they were able to increase their net profit by 20%. So instead of 25%, instead of being $4,700, it's $5,700. But they're taking every employee and raising them by $2 to $3 an hour. If you take every single 40-hour equivalent employee, full-time employee, and raise them by $3 an hour, what have you just done to your net profit?
Brought it down.
40 hours times $3 is $1,200. I didn't add benefits in there. I didn't add all the other stuff, but what have you done there? So just begin to look at it. So, okay. So when I work with companies, I look for tools, tips, and techniques. I'm looking for uncommon, common sense approaches to help companies win the battle. And let me give you the number one tool that most of you don't have. And I'll be glad to help. And anybody who, I'll talk about at the end of this, but okay. How many of you out there have a list, literally written list of the 8 to 10, and I'm going to use the number 10 top reasons why what I call a star employee should come to work for you?
Mm-hmm.
If I go out there and I do a presentation to groups, I survey people, I will tell you less than 10% of all the organizations out there, small, medium, large, literally have a written list of what I call their unique employment proposition. What are the top 10 reasons that somebody, that's star, and I can identify star employees. Star employees, what are they? They're self-motivated. They're talented and trainable. They're accountable. They're responsible. And they're stable. That's a star. Interesting enough, when I identified stars, I didn't talk about skill. I talked about beliefs and attitudes. And we could do a whole program on identifying stars. But let's go back to this unique selling proposition. If you don't have a list of why a great employee should come to work for you, where's that great employee going to come get the list?
They're not.
How are you going to, how do you attract customers? You need to develop a top 10 list of why. And it's got to be great pay. Well, if it isn't above average and above everybody else, you can't put it on your list. If it isn't something that makes you stand out, it can't go on your list. And the key to developing that unique employment proposition is one of the most important things you do. Because the key to developing a unique employment, you can sit there and develop the list. That's not a good list. Unless you're a sole proprietor, that's not a good list. Unless you are an individual who's looking to hire their first employee, you developing the list is no good. How you develop the list? I go to Tom and say, Tom, what's the number one reason you work here? What's the reason that gets you out of bed and gets you here every single morning on time, ready to go? What makes you so enthusiastic to work here? Tom, I want to be better at making you come. I want you to be better coming to work and enjoy more. What's the number one reason? And what else? Go and start with your best employees. They will tell you why they come to work for you. Build the list. Look at other people's list. Go to all your competitors' websites, see what's on there. You're going to find out most of them don't have a good list. Build a list. While you're there, though, start asking some other questions. Not only what makes you come to work, what makes you stay? Tom, you have options. You have what makes you stay. And then the other question is, what would make you leave? What's the one thing I could do to make you leave? Let's do stay interviews, not exit interviews. This is just one part of building what we call one-on-one meetings. But this is the first one-on-one meeting you should have with your employees. Finding out why they come to work, what makes them excited. What do you like most about your job? Hey, Tom, if there's one thing, now this is not all one conversation.
Right.
How about, Tom, if there's one thing you could give up, if there's one thing you never had to do again here, what would it be? What would happen if you took it away from them? What would happen if you could, or limit it? How about what strength have you got that I'm not using? What strength would you like? A stay conversation come out of building this top 10 list. Once you build the list, that's going to help you recruit. But we talked about the second front battle. That was selection. Building the top 10 list is going to help you better at selection. We could spend a whole program talking about better interviewing questions because most of us don't have good interviewing questions. I'm sorry, even if you've been trained in interviewing, you've probably been trained in behavioral interviewing. Behavioral interviewing is no longer the gold standard. But let's look at that top 10 list. Let me give you a question. I'm interviewing you. And I talk about the fact that, Tom, there's two decisions here. One, are you right for the job? But we got to make sure the job's right for you.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a list of the top 7 reasons people come to work here. Here's the list of the top reasons why they stay. Of all the things on that list, which one is most important to you? What would if I gave you a list and you said, oh, number one, on one of the things on our list, number one is we care. Number 2 is we treat you well enough that, we treat you well enough, we'll train you so well, you'll be able to leave, but treat you well if you want to stay. That's on our list.
Mm-hmm.
On our list is we're a family-friendly environment. What's on that list? Of all the things on this list, opportunity for growth and advancement. We promote from within. We give you new skills. Which one of those things on that list would be most important to you?
Mm-hmm.
They just gave you their number one key motivator. Most of you never know what the motivator of your new employee is. They just told you.
Right.
Okay. So that's number 2.
Okay.
No, number 3, you use it for advertising. You use it to retain people. You turn around and you use it for interviewing. And number 4, you put it on the back of every single manager's door. You put it on the door because that's our values and that's our culture and that's what we live by. I have a client in the car wash business. Their unique employment proposition is said in 3 statements. We work hard, we care, we have fun. They summed it up in 3.
Nice.
If you do nothing else because you're here today, I need you to build that unique employment proposition. It will make the difference. It will help you not only build a front line, it will build your bottom line. It will help you build a workforce and win the war for workers at every single position in your organization.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just one idea. I know we can spend more time, Tom. I know you asked me one question. I know it's normally a conversation between the two of us. I think I took it away from you.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is great. Let me ask you another question. I get a lot from my clients, and that is, where do they look for this talent? I mean, they've said, we tried Craigslist, it doesn't work anymore. We've tried Indeed, it's just not working. What are your suggestions?
That's a whole nother webinar.
Okay, then maybe we should.
No. That's a whole number podcast because
Uh-huh.
it's not a simple. For example, let's talk hourly. Let's talk professional. Doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I've written a little book called 101 Ways to Recruit, Attract Top Talent. Okay,
Uh-huh.
it's just a list of 101 ways, and it depends. And there are all kinds of unique ways. The number one, my number one source of great proven employees
Mm-hmm.
is all the people who have ever worked for you who no longer work for you. If you have a great employee who has left you,
Mm-hmm.
and you have an opening that you think that a great employee would fit, and you now have developed a unique employment proposition, the first thing I would do is I would call that new employee and say, hey, Tom, Mel with Metrics, look, reason I'm calling, we've had some changes take place, some things are happening. And I was just going through and say, of all the people I'd like to have back, of all the people I have working for me, you know what? I want to have you back. What do I have to do to get you back?
Mm-hmm.
So how would you answer that, Tom? Maybe you're not interested. How you could be happy, but what would you say? You're working for somebody else. You like your new job. What could you say?
Oh, more money.
No, but you may say, no, nothing.
Nothing.
Okay. Most people would, what would you say if you were really happy your new job? I called you or something else and you said, well, Tom, let me tell you, Mel, let me tell you what, I'm really happy.
Yeah.
I can
Okay.
appreciate that, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
I need your help though. Is there anybody you work with now or anybody you work with at companies that you worked with in the past Is there anybody out there who you think might be a good fit for us?
Mm.
Why are you not? You just nobody ever felt bad getting a job offer, right?
Hmm. Right.
Did I make you feel good as an ex-employee saying, "Hey, I'd love to have you back"?
Hmm.
I made you feel good.
Right.
I gave you the number one motivator. We could go down that path. So the
Hmm.
number one source of proven employees potentially are all the ex-employees who ever worked for you.
I
The
see.
boomerang effect.
Hmm.
How much training do you have to get them if you get them to come back? None.
Hmm.
What does it say to the people who work for you? Hey, yeah, you can leave and come back, but more importantly, it says, hey, this must be a good place to work. He came back.
Sure. That
So
makes
the
sense.
number one source that most of us never go after are people who have left.
Hmm.
Because if nothing else, they're an avenue to the second best source of employees, and that's employees who come from referral.
Right.
And the problem is that I just did a webinar the other day for somebody in the restaurant industry, and we spent our whole time just looking at how do you build better referral programs,
Hmm.
because most referral programs don't work.
Hmm.
But how do you build a better, more effective referral program?
Right. Well,
So,
this certainly is a topic we could use in our next podcast. So
so
we
have I
what
given you? You think I've given your idea? Have I given you a couple things your
absolutely. I
listeners can
think
use?
our listeners are going to really be able to use this information you've given us today, and it's going to get them thinking, and that's the important thing here. Mel, how can our listeners get a hold of you if they'd like to
Well,
reach out?
simply enough. Well, Tom, I think you're going to add a slide to the end of this podcast
Yeah.
or something.
Hmm.
They can go to that slide. Go to humetrics.com,
Hmm.
Humetrics, and it's got a contact me now button. Click the button, and I will be glad to talk to anybody, no charge. I'll be glad to talk about how potentially, I'll be glad to give you some ideas.
Okay.
I hopefully strive on, I hope everything I've said today is what I call uncommon common sense. It's
Hmm.
all of it is simple, easy to implement. It's easy to make things more difficult. It's difficult to make things simpler.
Hmm.
We look at the simplest way to get things done. So they can go to that, they can go to, you know, the easiest way, or they can call me. Just
Hmm.
pick up the phone and call me.
And
But
that number? What's that phone number?
713-771-4401. They
Thank
can
you.
email me and I'll make it easy. You don't even need my full name. Info at humetrics.com. Any way you want to reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. Reach out to me.
Okay.
I'll respond. But
All right.
hopefully, I've given everybody a couple of things that they can use and take home today.
You certainly have. Thank you so much, Mel. Look forward to having you back